Midway Island. Not much land, right enough, but it's our outpost, your front yard. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Having come into the war under the shock of the attack on Pearl Harbor and watching the Japanese Navy advance in the Pacific toward near domination, Americans needed some way to reassure themselves that their land was not about to be overrun. Europe and the threat of Hitler were still far across the Atlantic, but the Japanese were bringing the threat right into America's front yard. 7 months after Pearl Harbor, in June of 1942, the U.S. won a decisive victory over the Japanese near the tiny island of Midway. John Ford's documentary, The Battle of Midway, seizes the moment to rally the people around the cause of defending the land. In the first 5 minutes, Ford evokes what Elizabeth Anker in her book Orgies of Feeling calls the American melodrama. She argues that Americans forge identity by focusing on moments of trial at the hands of an evil enemy, and the justice, the moral certainty of opposing that enemy. Ford locates this melodrama in a sense of place, how Japan's attack on Midway constituted a threat against the viewer's own land and personal spaces, and that fighting this threat was the right thing to do. Much of the music of the opening sequence underscores the connection between land and the moral obligation to fight. Emotionally charged scenes drive home the central message that this location matters, and a voiceover narration insinuates itself as a viewer in a theater, bringing together the spaces of spectator and soldier, and making the conflict undeniably personal. These elements shore up the need to act in the face of an imminent threat, and the goodness, the moral certainty of the cause of defending American land from an evil invader. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. The music of the film engages spectators at the gut level of their identity as Americans by heightening the connection between land and a sense of moral certainty. The allusions to My Country 'Tis of Thee celebrate a land of American ideals and where personal sacrifice guards it for future generations. No doubt, those first viewers sang the opening lines in their heads and their thoughts turned to that larger American melodrama. Melodrama anchored the classical Hollywood approach of the era and structured the story of the film around moral conflict. Linda Williams, in her essay, Melodrama Revised, writes that cinematic melodrama has a moral legibility, as clear lines are drawn between good and evil. The struggle between them propels the narrative to a satisfying and just conclusion. Ford utilizes melodrama right from the start with the nation's hymn to the sacred land, and what emerges, like what Elizabeth Anker suggests, is a sense that the impending conflict over this tiny island is really a struggle between good and evil. What better reason to fight than to defend the land where our fathers died? According to the Marines' hymn, it isn't rights the Marines fight for, but for right. This is moral legibility, a certainty that defending Midway and the ongoing conflict with Japan are for the good. Several scenes in the opening sequence reinforce this moral legibility. Working as moments of attraction cinema, they reinforce the melodrama through an emotionally charged message that this land matters. Attraction was a staple of early cinema. Rather than tell stories, filmmakers gathered an audience to see feats of strength, beautiful people, carnival acts, and editing tricks. Linda Williams writes, these images had the ability to aggressively grab and move spectators and to heighten the sense of melodrama. Ford does just that.
These are the natives of Midway. Tojo has sworn to liberate them.
Goofy birds and playful music provide a conscious moment of laughter, a simple burst of emotion, and the narration just grounded it in a sense of place. The lightheartedness, the present emotional response, like in attraction cinema, actually reinforces the moral legibility by highlighting the preposterous injustice of attacking this place. What kind of people would do that, and who will fight to defend even helpless birds?
The birds seem nervous. There's something in the air. Something behind that sunset.
The music is an old folk song, Red River Valley. In the words, place, the valley is central to the poet's memory of and desire for her lover. Even without the words, the song sounds like home, and the spectators connect the place and the images with their own spaces. It is familiar and good. The sunset itself is universal in its power to move. Everybody loves a sunset. Most faces are silhouetted and obscured, giving them a universal quality too. They stand in for the spectators, sharing in the same delights even though miles apart. Guiding the feelings of the viewer toward a personal connection with the place and the soldiers, Ford reinforces that it is right and good to defend this land. Ford also uses voiceover narration to magnify the sense of place and the goodness of the fight. Charles Wolfe, in his important work on narration in documentary film, writes that narrators often bridge social and spatial relationships. In Midway, the narrator comments on the action, clarifies the details, and helps the viewer draw conclusions.
Midway Island. Not much land, right enough. But it's our outpost. Your front yard.
Powerfully, directly addressing the viewer contracts both the relational and geographic distance. Relationally, it breaks down the barrier by making the dialogue personal, as a conversation, and geographically, the words imply an ownership over the spaces represented in the film. This collapsing of social and spatial spheres effectively heightens the emotional investment of the viewer and foregrounds the main thrust of defending the land, making it present and personal. And then Ford goes further and reorients the perspective of the voiceover to produce a sensation that the voice, this person, is sitting among the spectators.
That fellow's walk looks familiar. My neighbor's boy used to amble along just like that.
The effect is magnified in a conversation.
Say, is that one of them flying fortresses?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Multiple voices encourage a collective experience, a dialogue. That place and those people become our land and our neighbors.
Why, that's young Will Kinney. He's from my hometown, Springfield, Ohio. He's not going to fly that great big bomber.
Yes, ma'am, that's his job. He's a skipper.
Will's dad is an engineer. 38 years on the old Ironton Railroad. And his mother, well, she's just like the rest of us mothers in Springfield or any other American town. And his sister, Patricia, well, she's about as pretty as they come.
I'll say so.
The commentary and images form Ford's final sensational thrust in this opening sequence of the film. They speak, rather over-the-top dramatically, of the connection between the world of the film, of Midway Island and the coming battle, and the rest of us, of fathers and mothers and siblings, and of their part in the American melodrama. The music told the story of land and a righteous cause. Sensational scenes made that connection vividly and emotionally clear. And the voiceover narration brought the worlds of the film and the theater together. It all comes down to place. What happens there happens here. And that threat justifies a fight.